What does it take for us to build workplaces and a world that is fit for the future? A question that plagues many a leader and many an organization. How do we learn from our experiences? Are we shaping ourselves and our workplaces to be fit for the future? What does it take to invest in people and nurture success? How do we ensure that our investments in diversity, equity, and inclusion are delivering to the intended goals? Are we seeing the very invisible responsibility that most employees carry, that of being caregivers? What does it take to build a caregiver friendly workplace? Are leaders caregivers? What can leaders and organizations learn from caregivers and their experiences? How do we create safe spaces that enable inclusion? Is this something that is holding, especially women, back from the C suite? We are delighted to bring to you a series of conversations around the idea of building future fit corporate. Shishir Agarwal. Welcome, Shishir. I am delighted to have you today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you very much, Bhavna. Look forward to the conversation.
Shishir is someone I have known for many, many years, um, my senior from XLRI. And more than that, I'd like to introduce his professional accolades, which is as a leader dedicated to promoting synergy and culture building across the organization. Shishir is responsible for the overall HR strategy of the firm and manages the wide gamut of HR initiatives to provide a proactive and business focused HR partnership and direction. With over 26 years of multi industry experience, Shishir possesses experience of effectively partnering with senior business and functional leaders, design HR interventions for employees spread across multiple geographies, including US, Netherlands, Qatar, Malaysia, Singapore, and India. As an engineering graduate, Shishir is a postgraduate degree holder from XLRI Jamshedpur, and prior to joining PNB MetLife has worked with organizations such as Shell, HSBC India, Irvin Mills. Such a wide, diverse experience, absolutely relevant from a functional standpoint. What would you tell our audience about yourself, Shishir, that your profile doesn't give us a peek?
Okay, so thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Some of the things I also got to know about myself through that introduction much better. But thank you very much, Bhavna. Uh, yeah, something about myself. Uh, Other than the professional part, my family, my wife, Anshu, I have two children, lovely children. Both, so we are empty nesters now. So my children are abroad, working or studying. And I think my parents, they stay in another city in India. Both of them take care of themselves. And the caregiving part that we keep talking about is very, very relevant from that context. And I think some of the things that you mentioned are very, very relevant for my personal part as well, in a way. But honestly, I think I've been fortunate to have worked in a large part of my career in organizations which have been forward looking. And I would kind of give that credit to HSBC and Shell, where I
Mm,
spent about 18 years of my working life, which
mm,
has shaped my understanding and the experiences that I've had around inclusion and some of these aspects, which prior to that may have not existed in my own mind, and I kind of it opened my mind when I experienced that. I had the fortune of working in European country as well, and when I spent those 4 years there, it provided a very different perspective of how we operate in India and how people look at things there, and I think that has also helped shape some of my own thinking in a way. So yeah, I mean some of those things additionally maybe to help with this conversation about my introduction. Thank you.
One thing that I deeply admire is your passion for your personal fitness. I notice, I see you for daily walks, very determined. And I do think that, working on our own fitness
Absolutely.
enables us not just physically, but also to perhaps mentally clear our minds. I mean, given your work profile, my guess is your morning walk is your time for focus and meditation.
Absolutely.
And I try not to intrude you. I would like for you to give us an understanding of how you have seen the role of HR and towards talent and culture change over time, and how do you see that shifting over the coming years?
So honestly speaking, I think since I've had the luxury of working 29 years and having started in an Indian-focused organization, Arvind, and thereafter in other multinational organization, as I mentioned, I think the approach around talent and
Mm.
culture has been there's been a drastic shift in terms of how we think over a period of time. Uh,
Mhm.
Earlier years, it was all about kind of progression of talent, just getting management trainees in and just progressing them and doing basic things there, provide experiences and doing some basic things. Culture, while it has been always spoken about, in a way, I don't think from what we had seen, what we see now, focus and the attention on that, we have seen that in the past as much. Today, I think I can very proudly and very confidently say that culture is one of the most important aspects which drives anything in terms of how the organization works, operates, leaders behave, and that kind of things shape the organization. I can give you a very clear example. I mean, for example, PNB MetLife, it's a life insurance company, right? I mean, it is
Mm.
spread around. We have offices all around the country. I don't even know where all. More than 150 branches all across the country. uh,
Right.
what keeps as a common thread. So I can sit here in my office and profess all about caregiving or employee well-being or employee care and talk a lot of good things here. But how do I ensure that the
Mm.
at the remotest level, remotest branch level, the philosophy is being adhered to, understood, followed, and implemented? I think the culture is the one common thread which really helps us do that, and I think the understanding of that has significantly changed. Appreciation of that has significantly changed, and I think I see a lot of leaders now firmly believing in it, and do see that as an important instrument to be able to drive consistent behavior across the organization. So, yeah, maybe I'll stop here and we can talk a bit more and go into depth of whatever you would like me to cover here.
How have you experienced, Shishir, the challenge of being able to attract and retain talent over time, right? You said you've worked in such diverse organizations, very diverse industries, and perhaps, the pressure of the kind of talent that you need to have and be able to retain has also changed shape.
Yeah.
So today, if you were to look at what are your challenges as the HR leader or as an organization leader in terms of talent, help us navigate that.
So, life insurance industry, as you know, as part of BFSI industry sector, typically, if you were to talk to any senior leader in a BFSI organization or life insurance organization, they would say talent attraction, retention is always a challenge because the
Hmm.
numbers are huge. I mean, I have an organization which has 24,000 employees, 9,000
Wow.
full time and 13,
Yeah.
14, 15,000 part time employees. Now,
Yeah.
at that rate, at that kind of a size and scale and spread around the
Mm.
country. The
Yeah.
attrition rates in life insurance industry are anything above 40% at any given point of time. Now
Wow.
you can imagine the kind of numbers that we deal with and the volume game. So this is definitely something which is very important. And again, as I said, I think the stickiness of employees will come and comes primarily only because of how you come across as an organization which takes care across the value chain. So be it the hygiene, basic employee care facilities with physical, mental, whatever, to the recognition, the more emotional and the more other aspects in terms of non-hygiene factors. How do you take care of that part? Of course, uh, the experiences that they get consistently across the organization. Uh, so it has to be a holistic approach that really helps in attracting talent as well as retaining talent in an operation. Having said that, I mean, I can say with confidence that all of us are in this journey, and none of us have really found a way to really make it perfect in a way. Said, okay, this is what we will do, and it kind of works. Definitely not. No one can say that. I can tell you with confidence. But having said that, I think we have made a good progress. A lot of us have made
Yes.
good progress over the last 3 to 4 years in terms of understanding the psyche and saying, okay, maybe these are the two or three things that we really need to do well to be able to have a much better experience than what maybe other competitors are having in the industry. So I cannot make it 40 to 10, but I can definitely make it 40 to 30, and maybe others continue to be 40 and above. So that kind of an approach helps.
So, give us an insight about how do you make your organization attractive to not just join, but also to continue to stay. So, what do you believe are some of the practices at PNB MetLife that are, that you're proud of, that you think are working well?
So I think one biggest factor which I say with a lot of confidence and a bit of a differentiator for us as against many other organizations is the flexible working arrangements. And I
Uh
think in a
huh.
caregiving environment, I think that this thing, I think it works very well. So even today, as an organization, we follow a principle of hybrid working and a flexible working arrangement, which is applicable to all our employees. I mean, maybe not for the frontline sales employees. And I'm honest there that that is one thing which still keeps bugs me that it is not applicable for 100% of employees. But yes, I mean we are getting there. So at least it's
Right.
applicable to a large section of our employees, and I think that works very well for us. And I
Yeah.
know of many other organizations who have tried this model post COVID or during the COVID times, and post COVID after a year or so have kind of reverted back to the 100% workday kind of a thing. And you've recently seen an example of a big IT company talking about linking
Yeah.
performance kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
for us, I think, and it's not that I don't get pressures from various leaders and various. I do get these pressures all the time from a leader saying that, okay, now see what is this is what others are doing. You should also revert to a full time working. But honestly speaking, I think from a philosophy and a thinking perspective, I personally believe, and I know my CEO also personally also believes in this, that this is the right thing to do. The hybrid working and the workplace flexible arrangements is a big positive today because in an urban setup like Mumbai or a Delhi or other locations, travel or a commute stress is a huge issue. And we all understand that. We all recover.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I stay very close to my office, so I take 10 minutes to get to office, and I get back very easily. But I know of people who travel 1.5, 2 hours to come to work every single
Yeah.
day and going back.
Yeah.
Now, that is a huge stress, and that kind of eats into your productivity at the organization level. And I'm
Yeah.
not talking just because I want to be nice to people. I'm talking from the productivity lens of the organization. And if I can get that 2 hours of employees working at home, I do get a lot better productivity from them. And I
Yeah.
think hence for us, it works quite well and it is a differentiator. And I do believe I'm able to attract a lot more talent from competitors just because of this one thing that we have continued to implement and we will continue to do.
What have been some of the challenges, Shishir, in implementing this? Because you just mentioned a little while ago that we do get some pressure about saying why we don't need to be as flexible anymore. So, give us an insight into the pressures that you hold.
So, so honestly, I mean, pressures are because see, ultimately, this all begins with the leadership believing in this
Yeah.
philosophy that it works. And honestly
Yes.
speaking, I mean, I've had. It's not that we were not having flexible arrangements before. We used to have
Yes.
earlier, but there were used to be a lot of naysayers in that group. In terms of leadership
Yeah.
group, I'm talking.
Yeah.
COVID, when COVID happened, people experienced that it can still work
Yeah.
because 2 years
Yeah.
we were all working from home, and everyone
Yeah.
experienced that it can still work. So
Yeah.
whenever someone comes, I mean, as I said, the first big barrier or challenge is leadership alignment and thinking around the philosophy.
Yeah.
If I don't have consistency in that, if I as an HR person can say this, CEO can say this, but if my CDO or distribution head or a finance head and others do not believe in it and they kind of say no, I mean this is maybe applicable for everyone, but my function, everyone comes to office every day. Now that
Yeah.
kind of breaks the chain and breaks the whole culture building process. So having consistency of approach across the organization and belief and leaders walking the talk kind of a thing does play a big role in making this happen. Secondly, I think there has been a lot of talk around when you do hybrid working, when you do 3 day working, you need to be able to create processes, mechanisms to make it successful, right? I mean, there's a whole lot of talk around community building, or so how do you kind of build affinity within the groups, etc. Now you need to find a way of making that happen. Honestly speaking, I mean, come up with days that people kind of define that, okay, you will come on these days, or the team has to, everyone in the team has to come on a particular day so that they get to meet together. So you need to come up with solutions which are innovative, which can work and help support deliver continuing with this model. Because once you've taken a decision around that, you need to ensure that you create mechanisms which make it successful. And I think
True.
that someone has to think, and otherwise it's very easy to kind of say that, okay, community building is not happening, or affinity is not happening, and hence people leave very quickly, kind of thing. But honestly, if you invested in it, you believe in it, you make it happen, and you kind of make it successful.
All right. So I'm glad that you mentioned something about, being innovative at the workplace and trying new things. And over time, I noticed that you also spoke about having exposure to organizations, in your past and now, that gave you an insight into building inclusive work cultures. What has been the journey, or what has been the challenge in bringing inclusion, especially of individuals with very diverse experiences?
So honestly, I think inclusion is something which is the biggest kind of enabler and the most important factor. And the many times over last many years in our journey, I think a lot of organizations have continued to focus on diversity, and largely female diversity. And now, of course, the conversation has shifted to multiple other things. But in my personal view, inclusion is one big factor which really makes the biggest difference. And how do we kind of enable that is through multiple ways in terms of,
Yeah.
again, the whole enabling culture in the organization to have policies and processes around that so that you can make it happen. Uh, Over my in previous organizations, so Shell, when I was there in previous organization, Shell, I think that was one area where inclusion was at the forefront on multiple aspects, because we were a multicultural organization. Any place, any location, you would have employees from all kinds of locations, all kind of countries, nationalities, etc. A lot of a huge population of management trainees or technical trainees, which meant that the generation part. So the conversation had shifted from just a female kind of or gender diversity to or multiple aspects, and each element or each part of these subgroups that we had different expectations. So different culture, when people come in from different culture, they come in from different generations. The expectations that they have from the organization are very, very different.
That's
And
right.
I think as an organization, you have to really adapt, understand that, listen to that, be very sensitive about it, and then come up with some solutions or ways in which you enable your organization or adapt to that expectation, so that you enable it. So I think that was one place which really taught me or shaped my own thinking in terms of how do you approach this. You form enabling networks, you form like-minded groups which come up with things that you need to do differently, uh, because one size does not fit all. And I think for too long we've kind of practiced that one size fit all policy and process. And I think that is an area where we needed to really rethink and do things differently. Uh, be it the way you have your workplace, the way you design your office space, and how flexible you make it, how enabling you make it for a young generation employee to come in and work, versus different culture individual coming in from different country, the US or Netherlands or UK, coming in and working in that environment, or even from Middle Eastern countries. We used to have a lot of people coming in from Middle East, who again have a very different kind of thinking and expectation in terms of ways of working. So we had to really shape and think about all of that to really do things differently, so that we can create an environment which is inclusive of all kind of people. So yeah, short answer to that, I guess, in a way.
Shishir, I'd like for you to help us with, maybe an anecdote or a story or an instance, because as you can imagine, that we go to a lot of conferences, there are lots of webinars, and conceptually one gets that, okay, this is what one must do. But
Right.
when the rubber hits the road, a lot of people would say that, it's a nice thing to talk about in conferences. Give me a real experience at the workplace and how has this really enabled business, whatever that means.
So, if I may talk about my current organization itself, and
Yes.
how, so from when we were trying to implement flexible workplace arrangements post COVID again, right?
Mm.
And as I said, leadership alignment and leadership thinking is very, very important in this. I'm
Yes.
aware in my conversations with some of these leaders when I was kind of exploring this whole concept around saying that, okay, we need to continue to do this. And I knew that my CEO was very supportive. So I knew that I will get that support. And I know Global MetLife was very supportive. But I
Right.
needed to ensure that alignment happened. And I know that there were two senior leaders in my own organization who have a
Mm.
very different thinking. Now,
Yeah.
and they would kind of continue to practice that, okay, we need to get people back at office because
Yes.
that's how I've always worked and that's how I've this thing. So
Yes.
it meant that and they were kind of not willing to agree to a common philosophy around it and say that, okay, as an
Yes.
organization, and they were saying, okay, you go ahead and do it for other functions. My function, I will do it this way. Now
Yeah.
that is where it breaks down, right? Because you cannot have
Yeah.
run an organization where in one office one function says I want to do it this way. I will not
Yeah.
follow through the line, and I
Yeah.
had to really work on them and get them to understand and give them specific examples from COVID times and this thing that, okay, tell me what is the challenge that you have, what is the
Yeah.
concern you have, what is the issue, because your team members,
Hmm.
I can understand their voice. I have spoken to them. My team has spoken to them. They would like to practice what we are doing here. Now you tell me
Yeah.
what is it that is the different challenge that you
Yeah.
have. So you have to really break it down and get them to kind of come down to a smallest things that they say. Okay, I cannot get them to come into a team huddle and kind of do this. So a lot of those kind of things came up, and we had to really break it down and get them to understand that things have worked and will continue to work. And it is not that this is a permanent arrangement. If you feel at any point of time that in a week or in a month or something important project is going on, you can always ask employees to come to work on all days during that project. It is not that it is a mandatory and it's a birthright that everyone has to work hybrid. It is not mandatory. It is up to you to kind of enable an environment which can happen this way. So things
Hmm.
like that had to be really worked upon and done. Especially you're right now in Gurgaon, right? Delhi, you said. In an
Yeah.
NCR environment where our offices are in Gurgaon, a lot of people come to our office from Noida or even Faridabad and those kind of locations. You can imagine the kind of travel stress that exists, and there with hardly any. I know there are metros there, but still metros are not as efficient because of long distance and long travel. So it becomes a huge issue. So one had to really get into that individual wise identification of challenges and break it up and get them to be convinced about it. So
Yeah.
something around that, and I have several examples where we enabled this working. So for example, again, I'll give you a specific example by how it works. So Mumbai, we all know is very expensive, right? If I hire
Yes.
talent in Mumbai today, I pay an X amount of premium if I have to hire them in other tier two cities. Now, by enabling this flexible working arrangement, I said, okay, underwriting, I have 80 people in underwriting. Why is it that I need to have them all be in Mumbai? Can I not? Why can't I do it from anywhere else? It's a kind of work that you
Yeah.
can do on a system. So we
Yeah.
had that conversation, convinced them, and said, okay, let's make it completely virtual and go out there and
Nice.
hire in tier two cities and tier three cities. Now that has enabled us to hire a lot of people from other locations, Lucknow and Pune and the Nagpurs of the world, and it has also helped me build my gender diversity much better because I'm able to
Yeah.
now attract talent who unfortunately had to relocate to those locations during COVID times or whatever, had to give up their jobs and were looking for employment and were not able to come back to Mumbai, and I was able to tap them and get them hired to be hired. So it has helped me in my business continuity, cost management, and also efficiency in the organization of talent hiring. So I think
What a
multiple things.
brilliant example. What a brilliant example. What a such a practical, brilliant example. Thank you for that, Shishir. I do think that, I'm glad that you mentioned the idea of not just diversity in terms of gender or people that made a choice to belong to a certain city, etc. My guess is that diversity of people coming from different experiences, different life experiences, can be so powerful for an organization to hear the voices, to be able to reach customers of a certain kind, etc., or to build sensitivity. Now, over your long career, you may have started working to at a point when gender diversity was not such a thing. You may have faced resistance, not just in your colleagues, but sometimes in your own mind, that what is this big deal about, I, you know why shouldn't it be merit, etc. You may have traversed a journey yourself, but what I'd like for us to discuss is that we put in a lot of effort to bring in the talent. It's like building the supply pipeline. And over this time, do you think that supply has reached the leadership place, the decision making positions, and what has been the challenge?
So, Bhavna, honestly speaking, I think while we have made a lot of progress in in the country, in many organizations, most organizations, in terms of building the pipeline, but I think the leakage part still continues to be a real problem, and it has not.
What is the
While it has
leakage?
improved, it has not improved to a level where it has reached a stage where we've been able to get sufficient number of leaders, the gender diverse leaders in the organizations, while and it is not because of lack of any intent or lack of any this thing. I think as an organization, our firm belief is that we need to have gender diverse, merit based. Merit based. There is
Yeah,
absolutely no compromise on merit, but that, honestly speaking, merit argument is very very rudimentary at times, because
yeah.
we do. If you leave aside that part at all, I mean, you still get enough gender diverse this thing opportunities and options. So that's not an issue at all anyway. But even today, while the intent of the organizations, and I would like to believe most organizations in the country today, because of their awareness around this and the benefit that they see, is to have a lot many female leaders or diverse leaders or whatever we can say, but not only female but other parts as well, leaders as part of the leadership and decision making groups. But there is a struggle to be able to get there, honestly speaking. So today, for
What
me,
is the
for my
struggle?
organization,
What's going on? What is the struggle? Help us understand that.
as I said, I think leakage is one big struggle, because at a point of time, at some this thing, a lot of talented, uh, high potential female leaders do drop out in middle for whatever personal reasons. Now, as an organization, I think it is up to us to ensure that continues to decrease, and we are able to provide them career opportunity. Because honestly speaking, while this may be true of a lot of true at our generations and our kind of experience level, the younger part, the individuals who are joining in today, I see a lot of passion and lot of willingness to pursue their careers at all cost. So even
Yes.
female, male, whatever. So they are very very clear. They want to pursue
Mm.
their career at all costs, and they would not. And I would expect that in next 5 to 10 years, when these people reach the middle management and senior management levels, I think the leakage of numbers will come down significantly there, and I think we will be able to make a huge progress. But unfortunately, people who have joined 20, 25, 30 years back, I think we have experienced this whole culture around leakage for whatever reasons and personal situations, circumstances, and hence that has kind of impacted the senior leadership level as we speak today. Uh, when I go out to hire people at senior leadership level today, there is always an intent to see if we can find this thing. But honestly speaking, no one would ever want to compromise on any aspect because of that. And while the effort is always there, we have all organizations have these policies around. Okay, you need to have X number of female, this, that, whatever. Honestly, honestly, at times it does not work that way. In my view, it does not work well, and it is not the right
Yeah,
thing to do. That you need to have X number of female candidates and
yeah,
Y and Y, because then
yeah,
it becomes very kind of someone is forcing you to do things, something that you would not want to do. I think it should come
yeah.
more naturally, and some of us who are believers in this whole process would like to happen for it to happen naturally rather than someone forcing it upon us.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I think also that there is no fun in, just saying that X numbers were there. Frankly, you could have X number, but if it is really not changing outcomes, then, what are we really saying? The purpose of it was that you bring in diversity of thought, you
Absolutely.
bring in a certain alternate way of thinking for the point of being more innovative, for the point of being more customer centric, for the reason to be more resilient, because you're watching out for new business, you're watching out for competition in a better way, you're
Absolutely.
making decisions that are that are going to help the organization. But if you get in the numbers but everybody is thinking the same way, then I don't think you are really making an impact.
Yeah, but
So
as I said, I think Bhavna, just to so I think things are changing. I mean, as I said, the
yes,
supply this point of time with a much younger generation is changing, and the passion and
yes,
the willingness to continue and pursue their career at all costs is very much there, and they do
yes,
bring a lot of diversity of thought and different ways of thinking and different ways of doing things. And
yes,
honestly speaking, if you want to survive in Mumbai kind of a location with the cost structures, double income is a mandate going forward. I mean, you will not
yeah.
be able to survive in Mumbai or a Gurgaon or a Delhi without a double income. So I don't. I mean, those pressures going forward will allow or enable this whole thing around continuity of employment over a longer period of time, which will bring down the leakage. So I do. I'm fairly confident and fairly optimistic that going forward in 5 to 10 years time, I think you will see a lot more diverse set of leadership groups than what you see today.
We did some research as an organization across a variety of organizations, and the research was that most exit interviews will record personal reasons
Yes,
as reasons for mostly women who drop off, quote unquote, the workforce. There is also so much conversation about why are women dropping off the workforce. We should include entrepreneurship in this. We should include informal work. After all, that is also work, etc., etc.
yeah,
Keeping all of that aside, from an organization standpoint, our research showed that mostly personal reasons are on account of mobility, motherhood, marriage, caregiving,
absolutely,
yeah. And women are disproportionately impacted currently
absolutely.
because we do have gender norms about work, etc. What I'd like for you to tell us is, have you taken any initiatives, or if you were to take some initiatives, what would be the initiatives that you would take to address this?
So honestly, Bhavna, I think this is a real issue and a concern, and I think forward-looking organizations would always. So I mean, let's not profess anything. I mean, for example, PNB MetLife. What, as I said, I think flexible working arrangement is one such initiative,
Yes,
in my view, which
yes,
enables this. So when I say to employees that you have an option to work from home for at least 2 days in a week, and and we recognize that some of it could be utilized for someone dropping a child to school or bringing the child, and hence being able to manage the work times accordingly, and you and your partner share that, so you do it for 2 3 days, someone else does it for a few days. So that is the backbone of why this whole policy around hybrid working and flexible working arrangement works for us.
yes,
And in my thinking and my view, that is the reason why we have enabled this. Of course, I mean, there is a side. aspect to that in terms of commuting stress and not needing to do that and being more productive because you're able to do a lot more hours at work than what you're doing in office at home. So I think that is the side thing aspect. But in my view, the main aspect is around. See, one thing we all need to recognize around caregiving, and I think you are doing a wonderful job in promoting this whole concept. But all of us, all individuals who are working today, at some point of time, will need to have a caregiving or will have a caregiving responsibility, as you said, be it your child, be it your parents, siblings, grandparents as well, or whatever. All of us at some point of time will have that phase in our careers when we will be required to focus on personal aspects around caregiving because this is a part of life, right? All of us will go through that phase. And it is up to us as an organization. How does caregiving really impact us as an organization? Because you're saying, if I am worried about something, if I need to do something which is my focus area for a particular this thing, it will have impact on my productivity. It will have impact in terms of how I'm thinking for the organization and my work. So if I'm able to give that space to that individual for a period of time on a particular day, whenever the individual needs to do whatever, and my belief is that that leaves out that particular time for that individual to be focused on that, but the balance time he becomes a lot more productive. He or she becomes a lot more productive and contributing for the organization's objectives or whatever goals or activities that the individual is required to do. So, in my view, I think that element in the flexible working arrangement is a big positive and a big enabler
That's true.
for allowing caregiving responsibilities to be fulfilled by every single individual at whatever point of time. Also, I mean, not everyone at a given point of time will have caregiving, so responsibilities at home. So I may have today, my colleague may not have it today because they are in that phase of life when it's not required. So when you have flexible work arrangements, you work out within the teams of who at a point of time or up in a particular day or a particular week requires that help or support from the team to be able to allow that individual to do that, concentrate on that, while others take on more responsibilities and help and support that the team to continue working. I think that, in my view, works much better if you have that arrangement working in the team. It brings the team together. It enables a team working culture and collaboration and supporting each other. If they recognize that today it is your job, your problem or your issue in terms of being giving the responsibility, tomorrow it can be mine and we can work together. I think that part people need to recognize, and I think that's an important aspect.
I think it enables people to also think about their careers long term and not really short term, right? I'm saying that, okay, I'm invested here. I feel that, okay, I got a benefit, and therefore, um, I should offer it back. What I'd like for you to also help, give us some insight is that flexibility is definitely valuable, and I agree with you. We have also heard from a large number of people and organizations that although I have flexibility, yeah, I may not have a very conducive culture. So the flexibility is on paper, the flexibility is there, but my manager may frown upon it, or my manager may not give me the credit.
Yeah,
So I don't want to exercise too much flexibility because it might go against me. Yeah. So there are, what do you as an organization do to help managers? Because if I have been a manager and I've learned management from my manager who was a previous generation,
absolutely.
I will
Awesome.
do similar things, but I need to change. So what have you done to educate managers or leaders about this new arrangement?
Bhavna, I think you've touched the right chord here, and I think this is the challenge that you face, and sure, and I mentioned it earlier as well. The mindset is something which is not similar or consistent across the organization, and while I may like to profess it from the corporate office sitting here that this is what is the best thing to do, but
Yes.
getting every single person aligned, the leaders especially around the
Yes.
country, even in remote locations, is the biggest challenge. So of course you need to do your awareness building sessions, storytelling sessions, leaders walking the talk kind of sessions, all kind of standard stuff that we normally talk about to build a culture or create a change environment, changing in the behavior kind of a thing. But still, there will be individuals who will not follow. So I think the bigger impact processes that one can do, and maybe we've also not still not done it as well, honestly speaking, is on the performance and the reward part of the culture, right? I mean, that is one which thing which influences a lot of right behaviors in a way, right or wrong at times. But
That's
that kind of makes a bigger impact
yeah,
in a way, because the soft part of managing, okay, I will do training, I will do awareness building, I will do all that,
yeah,
works to a particular level and extent.
yeah,
Beyond
yeah.
that, when you have hardened individuals who have had particular ways of working all through their life, for them to
Yeah,
make a change is not very easy. So I think
that's right.
that perspective, you need to link up the rewards in the performance culture. How do you reward people? If you see a bias creeping in by a particular
Mm,
manager
mm,
in kind of penalizing individuals who may have taken something like a flexible working, then as HR you need to step in and say that this is not an acceptable bias. You are biased and this is not an acceptable practice. So something around that. I think as long as we do those kind of things, positive storytelling around individuals who have successfully managing, but also the working very well as a team and demonstrating success at the work level as well. So, I mean, those positive as well as some kind of checks on biases that people may bring in can accelerate the process around this. But I would say that this is a big challenge and it is not something very easy to accomplish, overcome.
that's okay. So long as we are having a conversation and we are highlighting it and we are saying that, listen, let's keep this on our radar. I would like to extend. So it's not just sometimes the managers and it's not sometimes the leaders. Um, Sometimes it might just be a case of the HR team itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have been groomed, we have learned ways of being, we know what has been successful in the past. What are some of the initiatives that you may have taken as an HR leader to help your HR team see things differently and make changes themselves?
So honestly, Bhavna, I think this is a much easier problem to tackle because it's in a controlled environment and a group of people that you work very closely with, and you can
Right.
influence them. Being the leader of the HR function, it becomes much easier for me to influence than what I do at the larger organization level. So of course, I mean, you do all the right things in terms of communicating and giving them the
Yes.
logic, purpose, why you doing it, why it helps, how it helps the organization. Not a nice thing to do kind of an approach, but it is also there is a merit in doing it and there is a linkage. And some of those individuals themselves are experiencing caregiving responsibilities at a particular time in their career, using them as examples of see how this X person has been a brilliant performer over the last few years, needs that support during this period of time when he or she needs to provide that caring responsibility to their parents or children for next few weeks, few months, etc. If I were to not be flexible with that individual, the possibility is that that individual may leave right now, and we
Yeah.
would lose a potential talent for the future. We've seen that how he or she works in the organization. So using those examples within our own teams, because there will always be. I have a 160 member team in my HR team. There will always be those 10, 20 people who everyone knows is in that phase of life where they need support. So
Yeah.
and I know each of them individually, personally, and say that okay, this individual needs this support, this individual needs that support, and we all discuss and say okay, as a team we need to support and help, not help in a way, but we need to work together to ensure that that individual does not feel not included and being frowned upon or being challenged or being questioned that why is it that he or she is taking that extra time out because of personal reasons or whatever carrying responsibility. So I think it is much easier to tackle there, but yes, it does require efforts around sharing experiences, real life stories, and building that purpose part of it. That okay, why is it necessary? It is not a nice thing to do. We often do initiatives in the organizations which are nice to do, and we get into that initiative fatigue. I think the longer term story around how does this help build talent for the longer organization.
That's right.
I think that part is very, very important. Once people see it, they understand.
I have so many questions bubbling in my head, and it has been such a lovely conversation. I'd like to ask a few more to then bring this conversation to a close. But, Shishir, what about? I have heard from many that HR does not even know who is a caregiver. It's not possible to know. So, if I were to say, would you start in addition to, do you think it is meritorious to get people to self identify as caregivers?
Yeah, maybe, maybe. Honestly speaking, and I hand on heart, I cannot say with confidence that I would know a lot of people in my company who are caring. I would know every single person mostly. With a lot of 90% confidence I can say about my team, and even it's
Yes,
a 160-member team, I can say with a lot of confidence about my team. But if you were to
yes,
say about the organization, definitely not. And I think this is, honestly speaking. Uh, uh, my view, I think it is that the line managers, the managers
yes,
who have the responsibility of ensuring that
yes,
they know the team members well enough, and they have
yes,
built that credibility and trust that the individuals
yes,
who are caregivers and who need that support for a period of time can come with confidence and come and share that with their leaders. I don't expect them to come and share with HR because, of course, HR is limited and we can't. Not everyone can come and have that thing, but they should
yes,
be open enough to be able to share with their leaders and their
yeah,
thing. So I think that's where it happens. But yes, honestly, I think you've given me a thought. I have. I don't think we have any process in place today which
yeah,
enables people to come forward and talk about it. The
yeah,
process that we have is requesting for some special flexible arrangement requirements for a period of time. So as we practice hybrid, I said 3 days of work you are expected to come to office, but there are situations and instances where individuals have chosen to
yes,
discuss with their line managers and say, okay, for next 3 months, I need to be
yes,
working from home completely, or I need to be
yes,
in X location, I need to be based in Bangalore for whatever
yes,
reason for my family reasons. And we have
yes,
allowed that. The line managers allow that, and that does not always come to HR also. But
yes.
have I kind of created a process of people coming and self-identifying and doing it proactively? Maybe not. Maybe people who are more open about it, more confident, come and do it. But as a
Yes.
process, I don't think we have initiated something. Maybe it's a thought I will need to explore going forward.
It is a best practice, Shishir, which I'd like to share with you, that some of the large organizations, when they ask employees in the spirit of diversity, equity, and inclusion, they ask people to identify their gender, their pronouns, their life stages.
Yeah,
Some of the organizations would also prompt an employee and say, are you an active caregiver? Are you a caregiver? Because that declaration, that identification could enable many other things. The
absolutely.
challenge that we have, many of these organizations are US based organizations. The challenge that we have in the Indian context is that caregiver is not a term we use for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Uh, there is no term equivalent to caregiver in any of the Indian languages. It's
I,
not a
I, I,
part of.
I'll be honest, I heard it only when I heard from you earlier, when you sent across
I
something to
know.
me.
I know I am guilty as charged, but I also say this, that if you were to translate caregiver into any of the Indian languages, you will find terms like sevak, sahayak, timardar, dekhbhal karta. These are not terms we use for family members.
Yeah,
So we don't identify as caregivers. So clearly we will not do that. But an organization can prompt employees and educate that this is a thing.
right.
My other question for you, Shishir, is, do you think there are certain competencies that you acquire by virtue of your caregiving experience?
Absolutely. I mean, empathy is one. Empathy and uh, 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 reaching out and being able to help others, being able to take care of someone else. I think a lot of those things come in naturally when you do these things, when you take up the responsibility of caregiving. and many of those are very very applicable in an organizational context as well, because it helps
Yes.
individuals then to be sensitive of others requirements, expectations, and be more tolerant at a time, because caregiving is not very easy, right? It
Yeah.
requires patience, it requires a lot of different kinds of aspects. But I think in an organizational context, in my view, it will definitely help build empathy, patience, and ability to be more sensitive to others' requirements. I think that is something which definitely is an expectation, a need, and something which is not as prevalent in today's world in the organizations.
That's right. So I often say this, I'm going to say this: managers are also caregivers to their teams, right?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. At least they
So,
should be. They should be. They may
and we
not
can
be.
learn, yeah, we can acquire certain competencies that caregivers bring or caregiving enables. And it certainly enables, like you said, empathy, compassion, resilience, sometimes
Yeah.
patience, simply enduring ambiguity, etc. And perhaps those are skills that modern day management or leadership needs, and we can look to caregivers to bring that in. What would it mean for an organization to have that? The final question that I have for you, Shishir, is that in a world where we are living in nuclear families, or we don't have different experiences, intergenerational experiences that you referenced earlier as well, but we are working in workplaces that require that,
Yeah.
it can be quite a challenge. What are some of the ways in which you encourage people to build empathy, compassion, and an understanding of different experiences?
Uh, what are the different ways in which one can? I honestly, I mean, there is. Uh, I don't really have a straight answer to this in terms of what are the different ways in which one can build. But I think exposing them to the need that this is something which is very very important. That one needs to be sensitive and one needs to be have a better understanding of different expectations that different generations bring, or different. Well, it's the reality today. In my organization, I have people who are very close to retirement, and there are people who have just joined. I have my batch of management trainees are joining on 1st of May, a few days from now,
Nice.
and young 20 plus kind of people. Now, the organization, when these guys go into the larger set of organization, we need to have processes where people need to be able to understand what they want and how they operate and how they do. Now, it is not very easy to build that. Now, I don't have a very clear at this point of time. I can say that this is what I'm doing to really build on it, other than basic learning, awareness building, things around that, and telling them why it is important. Maybe as an organization, we need to start thinking a lot more about it in terms of practicing this thing. But it has not been an issue till now, and hence maybe we've not really focused on it too much. That much I can
Yeah.
say.
No, thank you for being so candid, Shishir, because I think that's valuable. If you were to give me a conceptual
Yeah.
answer to this, okay, here are a few things that we can do, I don't think that's valuable. And I have really appreciated this conversation because it has been authentic and it has been so pragmatic. And I'd like to thank you for giving us your time. I know more than once, so thank you for that. And thank you for giving us your insights and wisdom. That's valuable. I
Thank you
hope
very much.
that I would like to hear from you. Any closing remarks?
No, I
What do
think
you
this has
think?
been a wonderful discussion, and honestly, I think when we discussed that we should do this sometime, and as I said, I think I did go through some of the work that your organization is doing, and I do keep myself updated with that, reading through some of the things, and it kind of got me thinking a lot. So when I was preparing for this discussion, I mean, I didn't have too much time, but I did prepare for it. I was thinking about it, reflecting about it, and said, okay, what is it that we are doing differently? What is it that is working for us, etc. And uh, at times, while you may like to believe that you are doing a lot of good things and there are a lot of things, but you also come up with a lot of things that one can do differently and one should be thinking about. And in my process of reflecting and thinking through this whole thing about preparing for this, I think I came up with a lot of things on my own, saying that okay, maybe I have not thought about doing this, or maybe I have not thought about doing it. And our conversation has kind of brought in, or kind of only added to that list of things that I should be doing differently in my organization. So even after 28, 29 years of working in corporate life, there are always things that one can learn and do differently. And I think this conversation, or preparing for this conversation, has enabled me to think a lot differently, and brought about those new ideas. So thank you very much for having me here. It's been a lovely conversation, and I think I've really enjoyed this very very much. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. You have left me so curious. I'm going to set up another time for you to tell me all the new thoughts that you have and all the new experiments that we can do. And perhaps we can look at collaborating because I have some more ideas that I'd
Mhm.
like to give you as a part of building future fit corporates.
Will do. Look forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Shishir.